As expected, the Boston Bruins have made a trade before the deadline, acquiring Ondrej Kase in exchange for David Backes, Axel Anderson, and this year's first-round pick. Now, I've been waiting a while to talk about this because this trade broke as I was handling some commentating duties, so I didn't even know for a while what the return was. I just knew Kase to Boston. You can imagine my surprise when I found out that David Backes was a part of the deal. We're going to bury the lead here as far as how I feel about this deal for the Bruins. And first, we're going to talk about what the Anaheim Ducks are getting back in return. The first-round pick is where I'm going to start. And obviously, for the Ducks, a first-round pick is of extreme importance. For the main reason that, Anaheim's not exactly good. 55 points this season in 60 games. Yeah. So for Anaheim, any draft pick you can get when you're, fourth from the bottom in the table right now in the standings, any extra draft picks you can get is a big time positive, even if it's going to be outside of the lottery. Now, obviously for Anaheim, the system that you have right now, in terms of prospects, we'll say, isn't exactly poor, as this is taking forever. Hey, there we go. The system that the Anaheim Ducks have, it's a pretty strong system, all things considered, in terms of prospects. I mean, depends if you want to consider Sam Steele a prospect still, 77 games played. Isaac Lundstrom has 30 games at the NHL level. Antoine Morand is there. Benoit Olivier Giroux is there. Trevor Zegras is there. Comtois could still be considered a prospect. Hell, Max Jones doesn't even have that amount of deals. Ignore my phone. Braden Tracy, last year's first-round pick, is there. Sprong is at this point. But, yeah, in terms of the forward prospects that you have, you're probably going to look to draft a defenseman with at least one of those two picks now, and that'll help out quite a bit. Defensively, it's a little bit more hit or miss. Axel Anderson's a pretty good addition to that current pool right now. So, yeah, for the Ducks, it makes all the sense in the world to get another draft pick. Are the Ducks going to be done in terms of offloading some of these players and some of these contracts? Who's to say? But for now, at the very least, you start off with that draft pick, and it makes all the sense in the world. When it comes to Axel Anderson, former second-round pick, 57th overall of the Bruins in the 2018 draft. He's 20 years old. Again, you can sit here and be like, hey, good skating, skilled defenseman, strong puck mover. What he'll eventually become, we don't know, right? We don't know. Again, he shows these tendencies heading into the draft, right? We look at what he's done since. He played, 41 games in the Allsvenskan last year. Didn't exactly, light the world on fire for Södertälje. And has 22 points in 41 games for Moncton in the QMJHL this year. He was on Sweden's under-20 team. Now, what I am intrigued by would be points amongst defensemen in the Q, which, again, shout out to Cap Friendly and Elite Prospects, my favorite sites on the internet. But, yeah, looking here in terms of defensemen, and 28th. Now, there are some guys who haven't played a ton of games, actually, and here we'll apply the old filter to that. So, amongst defensemen who have played 20 games, old Axel here is 27th. So, not exactly lighting the world on fire in the queue from a point-producing perspective. Now, I do not know how good or bad Moncton happened to be this season. We can take a look at that, too. It's a learning experience for me. Let's see how Moncton has been this year. I should have just held the tab option. There we go. Moncton, how good are you? Because now point totals don't exactly show, like, oh, okay, his puck-moving ability. They have 42 wins in 55 games. Is that right? Is Moncton that good? They might be. Hold on, we're gonna find this out. We're going to the Q's website here. We're going to the Q. How good is Moncton? Oh boy, it's in French. Let's translate that sumbitch, shall we? Standings, education, tickets, stats, rankings. Rankings should probably be it, right? Hey, okay, so Moncton is the second best team in the queue behind the Sherbrooke Phoenix. So, I would kind of kind of expect Axel Anderson to have a higher point total than that. But, it's okay. It doesn't speak to his defensive abilities. And again, the CHL is a little bit behind in terms of how well they track advanced stats. But like I said, for the Ducks, makes all the sense in the world. You need defensive prospects. You get someone who could be decent. Former second-round pick shows that. You get another first-round pick. And you get David Backes with a little bit of salary retained. Now, obviously, that was the sweetener for the Bruins to go ahead and do this deal, as opposed to, say, going after J.G. Pageau, Kyle Palmieri, Chris Kreider. You find a team that's willing to take the David Backes contract. Now, unfortunately, and look, I like David Backes a lot. I really do. But his best days are obviously behind him. And the contract that he was on, $6 million, it's rough. Now, obviously, the math doesn't add up there, 1.5, because it's showing the AHL contract. But David Backes making $6 million, for the rest of this year and next. Ondrej Kase, by the way, also signed through next year, so very interesting in that way. But for the Bruins, obviously, it makes all the sense in the world to get rid of David Backes and, at least get someone who can play at a little bit of a higher level at this point. Because, again, I really like David Backes, but he's just not there anymore. And I really wish he had won last year. That is extremely weird to see, though. Obviously, I really wish he had won last year, but 3 points in 16 games this year. It's just, he's not what he used to be. And I really like him as a player. I don't think anyone has ever said anything negative about David Backes, the person, but this was a necessary move. And for the Bruins to be able to, get rid of Backes in this deal makes all the sense in the world for them. And I'm sure the sweetener for Anaheim was, hey, first round pick, you also get Axel Anderson. So for the Ducks, good deal. You get a first round pick, Axel Anderson, you get a defensive prospect in, a position of need. You have to take on David Backes, but that's fine. You give up Ondrej Kase, who, to be honest, isn't that much of a help to you right now anyway. And there is the argument over just how helpful Kase would be to that team over time. So for the Ducks, first rounder and Anderson, you get a player in Backes for now. Good deal for Anaheim. For the Bruins, this could be a potentially phenomenal deal. The problem is we don't yet know. The reason why we don't yet know is because Ondrej Kase does not have the best track record in terms of staying healthy. He just doesn't. He's 24, just turned 24 in November. I say that was 4 months ago. But he's 24, signed to a great deal through next season as well. But the problem is the durability. 53 games, 66 games, only 30 games last year, 49 games this year. If Ondrej Kase can stay healthy, this is a gigantic win for the Bruins, potentially. Perhaps, very similar to what we saw last year where they picked up Charlie Coyle, they got Marcus Johansson, and things went very well. You look at this team right now, and again, obviously the top line's pretty straightforward. DeBrusk, Krejci, Heinen could very well become DeBrusk, Krejci, Kase, and then you're looking at, Bjork, Coyle, Heinen, and then Carson Kuhlman's a name that's not going to jump off the page, especially with 5 points in 21 games to a non-Bruins fan. But effort is the key with Kuhlman. He's also pretty damn fast. So for the Bruins to have an option like Kuhlman, who would normally sub it on the fourth line, but it's done a little bit better, to have that option, to have him jump in whenever he's needed, is tremendous. Now, there isn't as big of a need for the Bruins this year as compared to last year, where they had to get Coyle and Mojo to make it happen. Obviously, Coyle is still there, and the emergence of Anders Bjork has been huge for them this season. He has 18 points in 53 games. I say emergence, he's not Connor McDavid, but nobody else is. So for this deal, there is the debate of are they done? And for forwards, I would say, yeah, they're probably done. That fourth line that's their fourth line. They're good to go. I don't see a move where they potentially risk dropping Bjork, Coyle, or Heinen down to the fourth line. That's just not going to happen. So for forwards, they're done. Defensively, it's tough to say. My opinion, I don't think that they add another defenseman. Now, you see Lozon, and you're probably thinking, really? Connor Clifton's hurt. You have John Moore as a healthy scratch. Kevin Miller's been out pretty much all season. It says week to week, but he's been week to week for a year and a half now. So could there be another move? Maybe. I'm personally not expecting it. I mean, in terms of who the hell would the Bruins even get at this point, I don't know as far as who they would add in addition to this. But in terms of going out and getting a forward, you genuinely didn't have to give up the farm like you would to get Kreider. I'm very happy with this. It's just, can he stay healthy? And again, what he's shown in the past, 20 points in 30 games, 38 points in 66 games, it's very promising. You know, he could be exactly what the Bruins need on that second line next to DeBrusk and Krejci, who are both still having pretty good seasons. Krejci's a little bit, I think, behind the point pace he had last year. Don't quote me on that. So when I look at this, you know, for the Bruins, we have to wait and see what happens with Kase, if he can stay healthy. And time will ultimately tell on that. But, you know, picks up a point in just about every other game, which is really nice. But here's where and why the Bruins did incredibly well here. And again, I'm not going to declare a winner. Talk to me in 10 years. If the Bruins win the Stanley Cup in June, it's a win no matter what. We don't know what's going to happen with Anaheim. We don't know how good Axel Anderson's going to be. We don't know who that pick's going to be. It could end up being, you know, the player that leads the Ducks to 3 Stanley Cups. But why this is a win for the Bruins is, again, much like we talked about in the Zucker deal or any other deal really involving a first-round pick so far, that pick has no value to the Bruins. It's going to be outside the lottery. It makes more sense to use that to go out and get help now because you are, I still believe, the top team in the NHL. There you go. Tampa's catching up friggin' fast, but the Bruins are the top team in the NHL. So, yeah, by the way, remember when I said they'd win the Stanley Cup this year? And people are like, you're just being biased. I told you this Bruins team was legit, and last year's run wasn't a fluke. I told you. Just going to point that out there. Will they win the Cup this year? I don't know. But the point was the Bruins are the real deal. And they are. So, just going to point that out. The reason why this is a major win is because while Axel Anderson is a former second-round pick, a later second-round pick at that, the Bruins are still fine. And you know why they're fine? Urho Vakanainen's still there. You didn't give up your top defensive prospect to get this deal done. You didn't have to give up your top, arguably your top prospect in general, and you didn't have to give up a roster player because, again, David Backes was being buried in the AHL. The Bruins get rid of this contract for a useful player by using a defenseman who wasn't their top defensive prospect and a first-round pick that has low value to them anyway. This is, in theory, a spectacular deal for the Bruins. Again, what Anderson becomes, what that first-round pick becomes, we don't know. But this is an incredibly cheap move for the Bruins. That's not something you have to think about. Like, you see that, done deal. No questions asked. And again, you know, you look at this defense core, and yeah, Torrey Krug's contract is up. He might end up walking for nothing, but you didn't have to move Grzelcyk. You didn't have to move Clifton. You especially didn't have to move Vakanainen. Again, like, you know, Lauzon, Zaboral. I would have probably put Axel Anderson ahead of Zaboral at this point, but Lauzon's been playing games. You didn't have to give up your top prospect. And again, forward-wise, you know, not that the Ducks needed another forward, but someone like Peter Cehlarik, who's been desperate to try and break out at the NHL level, he's still there. John Beecher, the Bruins' first-round pick from last year, he's still there. You didn't have to give up Lauko. You didn't have to give up Studnicka. You didn't have to give up Trent Frederick. This is a major win for the Bruins in that regard, in that the top prospects you probably do care about are still here. No disrespect to Axel Anderson, but, you know, especially forward-wise, all your top prospects are still there. And defensively, you had to give up a prospect, but it wasn't the top prospect. And again, this is a younger defense core, minus Zdeno Chara. But Charlie McAvoy, he's 23. Torrey Krug, if he stays. You know, Brandon Carlo was born in 96. Grzelcyk's a 94 birthday. He'll be 26 this year. Clifton's going to be 25. It's a really young core, all things considered. So when I look at this trade for both teams, again, big win for the Ducks. You needed a first rounder, you get another defensive prospect in, and you take David Backes with 25% salary retained. And yes, that is a factor, the 25%, But if you think about that, you know, it's $4.1 million now, essentially, for Ondrej Kase, as opposed to paying David Backes $6 million. It's a no-brainer. Buried in the AHL, can play in your top six, maybe on your third line if that's a better fit for him. It's a no-brainer. So again, it's a really good deal for Anaheim, and in theory, it's a spectacular deal for the Bruins. They get what they need, that extra forward that they didn't have when Marcus Johansson signed in Buffalo. So I'm thrilled as a Bruins fan. Again, is it the last thing that the Bruins do? I can't help but think so. Now, technically, they still have cap space, right? About $4 million in deadline space. They're missing a fourth-round pick, you know, this year as well. That was in the Marcus Johansson deal when they acquired him from New Jersey. So I can't help but think that they're done. I really don't see who else you would move. Like, if you're talking about a forward, I mean, you're not affording Chris Kreider at this point unless the Rangers want John Moore back. Like, I don't see who they'd possibly get that would be a big improvement. I don't know what Pajot makes, but like I said, when I was looking at the forward lines, I don't really see, you know, if you take out Kuhlman for Kase, I don't see where another forward fits in. Defensively, like I said, if you're 100% healthy, you can risk sending down, I think Lauzon can clear. You can risk sending down Clifton and then still have John Moore as a healthy scratch if you want to bring in another defenseman to play it safe. But as far as what defenseman's on the market, that's about $4 million, maybe as much as $6 million. You know, if you try to move John Moore in the deal, it's tough to say. So I can't help but think the Bruins are done here. But the bottom line is they did exactly what they had to do. They brought in a, you know, middle six option that they desperately needed. So again, for Anaheim, great deal in theory. For the Bruins, spectacular deal in theory. Like I said, 10 years from now, though, you look back on this trade, what's it going to be? Who does that pick become? Does Axel Anderson develop? And did Ondrej Kase stay healthy? These are questions that only time will tell. But like I said, just my opinion on the matter. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the deal. Are you bold enough to declare a winner? Long term, short term? What's the situation there? Let me know. And if you're a Ducks fan, are you happy with this? Were you happy with it and now feel differently after listening to my take on it as a Bruins fan? Let me know what you think. For Bruins fans as well, how you feeling? You should be feeling pretty damn good right now, I would say. It's just pray Ondrej Kase can stay healthy. Thank you guys very much for watching. Drop a like on the video, of course, if you haven't already done so. Check out everything in the description, of course, as well. Links to all the socials, Discord, Twitch, and, of course, my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Of course, you guys get early access to the videos, help me decide some videos, and those kind of side videos we're going to be getting back to very soon, I promise. And, of course, you get access to the exclusive franchise mode over on Patreon. There should be an episode of that up on Saturday. Just in general, the normal franchise mode videos today. I fell behind because my sleep schedule has been a disaster. But I thank you all very much for watching again, and I will see you all soon. Again, Monday, live stream on Twitch during the deadline, I hope. And, of course, there'll be videos talking about it afterwards. Good night, good day, goodbye.